Hi, welcome to the Online Jewelry Academy. I'm Professor John Ahr and I'm your instructor. Today I'm going to talk to you about making an enamel color chart. When you order enamel online or through direct mail, you're dealing with a color chart that's not really accurate. And that's just because it's either on your screen or it's printed and the colors aren't going to be the same as something that you can see in real life. Now, it's very important, like a painter, that you test your colors before you actually apply them to your work, because you could spoil a beautiful piece of jewelry by not really knowing what the color is going to look like before you place it on an object. So, what we have here are two large color tests that show two different things. The bottom one has vertical stripes that show opaque colors, and the colors are notated along the top. Now, moving horizontally across this tile are transparent colors, and they too are also noted across the side, telling me what color I used. And as you can see, the transparent colors allow the opaque color to show through. So I can tell when I put this yellow over this green what I'm going to get. Likewise, I want to run a color test with transparents over transparents, because as you layer or thicken a layer of transparent enamel, the color will get darker and more rich. These colors cannot be blended. There's no way that I'm able to mix, say, a yellow and a blue to produce a green. All I would get would be something that looks like the counter enamel that's often used on the back side of a surface. I would just have speckles. I wouldn't get a beautiful clear color. Now, what I'm going to show you is how to make a tile like this one. These larger tiles were made in a kiln, but we're going to do this through a torch-fired enamel process, so we need to keep the scale a little bit smaller. But I need you to be well organized, because you're going to not remember in a few days what color name is this particular color versus the other one just below it. So as you can see on this sampler, I've recorded all of the colors on the back side for easy reference. Okay, let me show you some of the tools that you're going to need to do this. Now, the first thing that you're going to need, of course, is a sheet of copper. The copper should be at least 20 gauge to 18 gauge in thickness. If you work with a really thick gauge of copper, it means that you won't have to counter enamel the back. In other words, you won't have to put enamel on the back side to keep an even tension on the piece to prevent it from cracking or pinging off some of the color. Other things that you're going to need would be a paintbrush, and here you're going to work with this paintbrush dry. You're just going to use it to move around the granular color. Now, this is a stone. The stone is used underwater to remove those little threads that sometimes develop on the edge of an enamel piece that can actually very easily get under your skin. I also have an old pair of pliers for moving the hot piece of enamel around, and I have safety equipment. I've got my eye protection and a dust mask. Now let me just say something about the dust mask. You may not see anything floating through the air. Doesn't matter. This material is dangerous. If you breathe it in, you will never cough it out. It will always be in your lungs, cutting your lung tissue for the rest of your life, and it will shorten your life. So don't be lazy. Put on your dust mask. You just need one that's rated for particulate matter. It doesn't need to be rated for fumes. Okay, this item is a sifter. Now, this is an 80 mesh screen on the bottom of this sifter. You can either buy these from an enamel supply company like Thompson Enamel, or you could make one yourself. But we are working with an 80 mesh enamel, which means that it's already been screened through something that same size. Now, you'll also need some little pieces like this. And what they are is, it's just index card material that's a little thicker paper, like a cardstock, where I've taken an X-Acto blade and I've cut just a straight opening down the center. And then I've taken a little bit more paper and created these handles on either side. These will allow me to use the sifter over them and then to remove them in order to just create just a straight line of color on my test plate. Now over here what I've got set up is a tripod so that I can take the torch and heat the plate from underneath. Now the plate will have some weight to it, so I've placed a little soldering block on top of the other side of this stainless steel mesh to prevent the tile from flipping off. And you can see I have my ventilation system close by. Now I'll be using the old pair of pliers to remove the tile from the top of this mesh and placing it down here on a bench block. This is a large steel surface that's going to grab the heat out of the piece. Now the important thing is although you think that the piece is fully cooled and ready for you to pick up with your fingertips, be careful. Always test before you pick something up with your bare hand, and leave your eye protection on because you don't want it to cool suddenly and ping something off into your eye. For this example, I'm going to be using a foundation white to just coat the tile to create a basic white background. And I'm going to shortcut this a little bit. I'm only going to use one opaque color. In this case, I'm going to use a flame red. It's an 1880, and I'm going to be using a mandarin orange, which is a transparent, which is 2840 on the Thompson color chart. Okay, let me clear this away and make some space, and I'll be right back to show you how it's done. I've laid out all of the tools that I'm going to need to make the color chart. The one thing that is important to note is that I'm using pieces of magazine. These are pages torn from a magazine that I've creased in half that I'm going to work on top of. Now the reason I'm using this material is because the enamel won't cling to it, and I can easily pick it up and pour the remainder that falls off the edges back into the container so that I'm not wasting anything. Be sure that you don't cross-contaminate any of the enamels, because remember, they don't mix to blend to make beautiful colors. You just get ugly little speckles. So one sheet for one color. Now another trick that I've done is I've put the cap to a little bottle on top of this magazine page so that I can put my blank on top of it so it's easier to pick up once it has enamel on top of it so that I can move it to my firing station. Okay, I'm going to put on my safety glasses and my dust mask, and I'm going to start to sift the enamel. Okay, I'm going to start with the foundation white. So I'm going to open up my color. Now this is 1030. It's just a basic color to start so that we have a nice white surface to begin with. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the sifter into the enamel and then just kind of shake off the residue from the edges, and I'll bring it to my plate, and I'm just going to kind of scrape my fingernail on the little handle to it and start to sift the color onto the plate. Now it's important to try to get an even coating because we don't want any of the copper showing through. And if you need to do a second coating, that's okay. But too much of it will actually start to migrate into your colors. So try to just get it right the first time. Okay, I'm just going back and evening up the edges. All right, I can tap this out. Set the sifter aside. Now I'll transfer this to my firing area. Just want to keep it level so I don't drop any of the enamel. Okay, it's balanced. Now it's time to light the torch. Keep the piece in the flame and keep the torch moving to heat it evenly. I want to better explain the process of making this color chart. It's important that the colors are applied one at a time and fired individually. That means that I need to fire all of the opaque colors one at a time before I fire transparent colors over them one at a time. You can see at this point that the enamel is looking a bit like burnt sugar, but it will quickly fuse and flow over the entire surface. And what I'm going to do is let it cool just a bit, and then I'll take my old pair of pliers and grab a corner and then just transfer it to the bench block to cool. In the meantime, let me show you how to clean up the area that you've been working in. Now, the first thing that you may want to do is take your sifter and with a paper towel, just wipe it out and to throw that paper towel away. Then I'm going to take away this little riser that I used, and now I'm going to pick up this top page and just gently knock the enamel to the center. I previously creased the page to make it a little easier to do this, and now I'm just going to tap and return the excess enamel to the container and just throw that piece of paper away. Some people like to hang on to them in files, but it's probably better just to get rid of it. So now I can cap the enamel and set it aside. Okay, now let me take this off so you can hear me better. Some of you are probably wondering why I didn't just sift on top of the screen. Well, the answer is you do not want to build up glass particles on top of this screen, because if you do, every time that you heat something up and then pick it up to remove it, you're going to create a bunch of glass threads, and those threads can be dangerous. So keep it clear, don't sift on top of the screen. You can just move on top of it. All right, this should be cool enough, so let's pick it up. It's cool to the touch, and I can move it and place it right on top of my work area. Now, what I have is a cutout frame, and I'm going to place this frame across the piece like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create your first stripe using an opaque color. And I'm using the Flame Red, which is 1880. Now I forgot, got to put my safety protection back on. Anytime you have the enamel containers open, you do want to have your safety protection on. Alright, so I'm opening this up. And like I said, I have this cutout area positioned over the tile already. Now all I need to do is just dip in for a little bit of the enamel color and just tap it to knock it off the edges. And then I'm just going to bring it over here, and I just want to sift just on top of this cutout. And I'm trying to get just an even layer of the red across the piece. I'll tap out the sifter. And this is why I have these little handles. It allows me to grab them and just pick up, and I have a perfect line. Now I can move this back over to the firing station and fire that down. Okay, you probably noticed a couple of things while I was doing this. Number one, I was moving the torch to heat the whole plate. The second thing that you probably have noticed is that that line looks black. It's going to look black until it cools and the material is allowed to just be at a normal room temperature, and then the color will re-emerge back into it. So we're going to let that cool down, and then I'll clean this up and get ready to do the next color. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my workstation, make sure that my safety equipment is back on. And this time I'm going to be using a Mandarin Orange 2840. Now this is a nice bright orange color. And again, I'm going to be using the same tool, but this time, instead of creating a vertical line, I will be doing a horizontal line. Now, when you make these color charts, be sure to leave some white so that you can see colors over white and not just on the opaques. All right, so I have my sifter loaded, and then I'm just going to come and just sift a line across the plate. I love this tool because it gives me a perfect line. All right, now I'm going to come back to the firing station. But oops, before I go, I want to take my paintbrush and wipe off the excess. I was a little sloppy. There we go. All right, I'll light my torch. Okay, it's fully fired, not overfired. I'll grab it with the pliers and place it on our cooling station. Now that it's fired, I can take off my safety equipment. Some of you probably noticed the red went black again, and that orange still looks kind of brown. When it cools, it will come back to the right color. But now you know the process for making a color chart. Be sure to test all of your colors before you apply them to your work, and I guarantee that you'll have great success. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check out our other videos and products on the onlinejewelryacademy.com. And if you like this video, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.